My name's Lauren Woods, and I'm with the Center for Learning Innovation. And today we're going to take a look at Collaborate Ultra, the web conferencing system that's integrated into our Blackboard management system. First, we're going to review a couple of best practices, and then we're going to do a live demo. So, on to best practices. The most important is just to communicate more with your students. Now, Blackboard has various ways that you can do this through their email, through announcements, through discussion boards. And how this all relates to Collaborate Ultra is that it lets you let your students know what your expectations are. So they know what to expect if and when you're using Collaborate Ultra. They'll know if you expect attendance, for instance, or if you expect them to be there at a certain regular time, regular day, that sort of a thing. It just kind of keeps everybody on the same page. Now, the second best practice is accessibility for all. Now, if you have students with formal disability requests on file, you'll hear from the Center for Disability Resources. However, not everybody that has a disability either registers, or anybody sometimes can benefit from just being a little bit more inclusive in how you are running and managing your class. So, for instance, just check in frequently. Can everybody see what's going on? Can everybody hear the presentation? Are you having any technical difficulties? Those sorts of things. Just kind of going back to that first practice of communicating with your students, just to make sure that everything is kind of running as smoothly as it possibly can be. Another best practice, keep calm and carry on. Students inevitably are going to have connectivity issues. Faculty inevitably are going to have connectivity issues. It's not always going to go smoothly, and sometimes the best you can do is just kind of roll with it and be patient and understanding. Back to that communication, explain what's going on, and just kind of move on. That's why recording can be very helpful as well. You can record the Collaborate Ultra sessions. So if a student, for instance, has connectivity issues, they can come back and watch the recording later so that they don't really miss anything. And if you're having connectivity issues, you can always go into Collaborate Ultra and record something without necessarily the students present as well. On the technical side of things, there are a couple of other best practices to take into consideration. For instance, be sure that you close all the programs on your computer except for the browser you are using. The recommended browser for Collaborate Ultra is Chrome. Use a hardwired connection if you have one. Use only up-to-date browsers. If you do find yourself having some problems with jittery video, remind folks to use only video when necessary. You don't have to have your camera on all the time. It would be nice to be able to see you, so make sure you do post a picture in that in your profile settings so that that goes with you if you cannot show a camera. And finally, if you're in a large class, this might be particularly helpful. There is a mute button on what is called the attendee panel that we'll take a look at in just a sec. And if you click that, that mutes everybody but the speaker. And if other participants are having technical issues, or there's a buzzing sound, or there's a window open, or there's whatever else is kind of going on, if you hit mute everyone but the speaker, their mics automatically turn off. They can turn them back on, so if they do have a question or something, you can turn them back on. If you do notice that it's one particular person that seems to be having more trouble with the microphone, you can always mute them individually, but the mute everyone but the speaker button can be particularly helpful. Now I think it's time that we take a live demo and see Collaborate Ultra in action. So here we are in a course in Blackboard. From here you can find the Collaborate Ultra link just right here in the left-hand navigation. If you click on that, that will bring up the Collaborate Ultra page. And as you can see here, there is a course room that's associated with every Blackboard course. You can use this whenever. It's always unlocked and available unless you choose to lock it. Just a couple of quick things before we go to create a session. In this session menu here, you'll see this little hamburger section. If you click on that, that's where you will find the sessions, which would be the live sessions that you either create or the room itself. And then here, after you've had a session and recorded it, this is where you would find recordings. So you can see there's a couple of recordings here already. But typically when you first start, you're going to start on this menu here. It says there's no scheduled sessions, but what you can do is create a session. And in order to do that, click on the Create button, and it'll pop up a whole new menu. We can title the session. Sometimes you might want to give it a more descriptive title, like this is a walkthrough session, right? So we'll call it walkthrough. I'll spell it correctly. Walkthrough. Collaborate session. Okay. And we do want guest access, so we want to click on that, and roles will automatically become guests will automatically have the role of a participant in this section. And once we save the session, it'll create the link for them, and you can use that to send out, or it'll just be over here in your course. Students can click on that and just go directly in from the course. Now, to start a session, you can start it at any time. You can start it in the future just by clicking on the calendar here, select the day you want to start, select the time you want to start. You can also select an end time. If you want it to end within an hour or an hour and a half or whatever you want, you can do that. Just be aware, if you do have a set end time, folks will be removed from the room at that particular end time and the session will close. Nobody will be able to have access to it again, okay? If you do set your session, for instance, this one has a starting date time of 3:08. If you have that set, but you want to get into it ahead of time, make sure you set the times here. So for instance, if your class is, you're going to have your live session at 6 p.m., that's great, but you want to get into it an hour earlier, you can simply click on the link here and select an hour earlier for you to get into the class. Now you can also provide a description for why are we meeting. Well, in this particular instance, we're meeting to look at Collaborate Ultra. That's why we're meeting. Now you can, from here, you can click this to create the class now, but we want to see a couple more settings first. So we'll go to the session settings. Our default role is going to be a participant, but you could set that to whatever you like. If you want them to be a presenter or a moderator, presenter has pretty much all of the roles as a moderator, except the moderator can promote people to different roles, and I don't believe the presenter can do that. So the other settings that are on here, you can allow recordings to be downloaded. Anonymized chat messages simply means that if you want the recording to not identify who said what during a chat, you can check that button off. There's a bunch of other permissions here for moderators, for participants. If you don't want them to be able to share your audio or video or post chat messages, you can deselect those or draw on the whiteboard or files, but that kind of defeats the purpose of having them being able to share audio and video in a synchronous session. This you probably would want checked. If somebody's having some technical difficulties, you can allow them to hang up or get out of the collab session and just call on a regular telephone and be able to listen to the session from there. Then there's some other ones here too. The profanity filter is new, so that's something that you might want to check if you think you have the need. The other session here that is new is this attendance reporting feature. You can share the attendance information with the learning management system. In our case, that would be Blackboard Learn. You can say how late you want students to be counted. If they're here after 5 minutes, they're considered late. If you want them absent after 20 minutes or whatever, if you want them even less than that, you can select that time as well. You can have a required time for them to be in the session to be marked as absent as well. Once you've made all these selections, you click here, create your session, and as you see, it automatically appeared here. So we can click out of this. It automatically appears over here. So if you create it ahead of time, it'll still list here, but instead of saying in progress, it'll say not available. If you want to edit it then, there are still some sessions here. You can join the session. You can, here's those phone numbers that I mentioned. You call in, enter the PIN number. If, again, somebody is not able to attend, you can send them this information as well. You can edit settings. You can view different reports of the session as well. You can delete it, and then you can always copy the link to send to somebody else too. Okay, so we're going to join the session. So let's do that. Now, as you can see, I'm the only one in the room. So we can check audio, video, kind of get started here. But first, a couple of things that you can see just from looking at it quickly. There is, again, this little hamburger menu up at the top. It's called the session menu. If you click on that, that is where you're going to be able to start your recording. So remember to do that. Otherwise, you will not have a recording for your session. This is also for using the phone. Tell me a little bit about Collaborate is if you want to get in there and review a walkthrough on your own, and that's the Collaborate Help button. And that is useful. That will take you to, let me show you this real quick, this menu here, that will be Collaborate Help for moderators. And from there you can see kind of all sorts of different features, what's new, getting started, all that sort of thing, if you need some additional help. The Blackboard help usually has an awful lot in it as well. So, but you don't need any help. We're going to go back to our session now, and this is also from the session menu where you can leave the session too. So for instance here, there's a little button here to leave the session. You can also leave the session, see the little icons down here at the bottom. This is called the Collaborate pane, and this one is the Collaborate panel over here, which has a chat section, it has the attendee panel, it has the share content panel, and settings. Okay, but I was talking about this here is your little icon. If you click on this, it says My Status and Settings. You can also leave this session from here as well. The other thing you can check is to see your bitrate and experience. You can also see that for your students as well in the attendee menu. Okay, but there's also some other features here too. If you want to post them, then like if you hit agree, a little green checked light comes on. If you want to say, you know, oh, I'm surprised you said that, it just changes the little emoticon down there at the bottom. If you or somebody need to be away for a sec, they can click this. The other thing too, if you click this moderator session settings button here, it will take you to the settings menu over on that Collaborate panel. So, and from here, what you can do is, if you haven't done so already, change and add a profile picture. You can just upload one. You can even upload it from your camera if you want to do that. If you click this little button here to always use the profile picture, it will, no matter what Collaborate session you're in, it will bring in this picture for you. Okay, so that's the same menu here on the Collaborate panel. Next, we can go over here to the chat panel. As you can see, it says everyone. Now, if you click this little arrow, sometimes it's hard to see and you don't really notice it right away. But if you click on this, you can see there's a chat for everyone. There's also a chat for moderators. You can also do private chats with folks. If there were more people in here, you could just type a name and that would pop up, and then you could have a private chat with people as well. The same with small groups too. Okay. Now, we'll go back to the everyone chat. Usually I like to start by putting in something like, even if nobody's in here yet, I can do welcome and let folks know that we'll get started shortly. If I don't want to, you know, open up the mic and use that. Okay, but for right now, we'll go ahead while we're waiting for our attendees to come in. We will kind of go ahead and check on that mic and the video. You do that again from over here in the session menu, or the session panel, I guess they call it. Right here where it says share audio, you click on that and it says you're sharing your audio. If you don't want to share your audio, you click the mute button and it will mute your audio. Okay, so we want to share our audio and then our video. First, it'll show you a little preview about how, and here you go. You can see that you look perfect. Then you can hit share video. Once you do that, it will displayed down here in the little lower left corner. Now this little person here is the raise hand feature, and you can do that. It'll raise your hand in the session. If you're the moderator, you'll see those hands raised here. So that's something else that you can tell your students. You expect them to raise their hands and not just kind of jump in. Okay. Let's see. We can go back to now the attendee panel. We talked about because there's only one, and you only see me. I'm the only one in the room. So you can check, again, this is another way to see the bit rate and all the different experience that people have. You can also, in this instance, because I'm a moderator, you can make me a captioner. You can type and add captions, live captions on the fly. You will also see here, if you have other people that are listed, to be able to mute their audio. And see, here's that famous mute all button. If you have a large class, you might want to make sure, remind folks to raise their hand using that raise your hand feature while you mute everybody. Okay. You can also detach the panel too. What that does is the attendee list. It moves it off to the side here. So if you want to be able to see the chat and see everybody that's participating, that might be an option you want. To put it back, you just go back. Okay. Now the next and probably more important features of all of these is the share content panel. There's a lot going on here, and we can go through each thing a little bit. The share blank whiteboard, that's just what it says. It's a whiteboard that you can have these tools appear across the top. You can either select, use as a pointer, you can have a pencil and draw on it, all kinds of wonderful things. And even more important, you can erase everything if you want to. There's shapes that can help if you want. And also there's this that kind of pops up when you're sharing content as well. Looks like a magnifying glass with a piece of paper, because that's exactly what it is. It allows you to zoom in on something or zoom out on something. Take up the whole screen as much as possible, or go back to whatever the size was that you had to begin with. And that's something that you might find useful when sharing content or slides, that sort of thing. So students can do that as well. The other thing students can do and participants can do in a session like this is you can switch between different views as well. So, but right now we're going to go to share the application or the screen, because I think that might show up a little bit better. So to stop sharing, you see this little stop button here that can stop sharing. It also appears over here as well. So you can click stop sharing here, and you can go to share an application or screen. And that allows you to either share your entire screen of your computer. You can share a specific application window. Right now the only thing I have open is Chrome, so that's all it's letting you look at is the Chrome menu. Or you can share a specific tab within that Chrome menu. For instance, you can share a different web page that way. And if you do that, you just click on share. It takes you to this page. You are no longer in the room, but you can see it's sharing this page. And over here, this is the little recording. This is the Collaborate session that you're in. But this is what's being shared now. So you can kind of go through and see all the features that are here. Okay, and kind of go through a web page with folks if you want to do that. Now to stop sharing, you click on the stop sign or the stop menu button over here, and that will stop sharing. Now if you go back to our session, you can see that's where that's right on the screen there. And from here, I think you might be able to, maybe as a moderator, I can't do that. But you can also, again, a demo of it, zooming in, going back to the original size, and going back to the large size, as it were. So that's sharing an application, as it says. To stop sharing, again, you just click on the little button. And you are done sharing that. Now you can also share a camera. It'll list if you have more than one camera plugged in here, you can do that. You can also share your FaceTime camera. Again, it'll pop up that video screen, and then you can share that. and that'll pop up. And this does record, actually. This little image down here at the bottom, that does not record when you're recording your session. So if you do want to record your face in the session, you can hit share camera, and it'll tell you which camera you're sharing, and so then folks can see that you're actually chatting with them and talking with them. Okay, so you can do that, but as soon as you go to share something else, let's see, we'll take that away. So let's move on to adding a file, and when we do that, you can share their PowerPoint. What it does, it'll convert it to a PDF file when you do it up. So let's do that right now. So add a file. It'll bring up this, and it should have in here the Collaborate Ultra PowerPoints. We open that, and it uploads and converts. You'll see it says it's converting it to the PDF file. We have to wait a couple of seconds for it to do that. And then it does it. If you select Share Now, it'll say, okay, but what slide do you want to start with? Let's go to this particular slide here, slide number 8. And what it does is it removes my camera, but then brings up this annotation tool, a slide, which is wonderful because now it allows us to talk a little bit about the annotation tool again. We were using those tools over here up on the whiteboard. You can also use them over slides as well. So if you want to use the pointer, for instance, you can do that and show what's going on. You can use the select tool. I guess that's not really helpful in this instance, is it? But you can use the pointer tool, kind of point out little different areas. You can use the highlighter or the pencil tool to circle and point out different things. Look at that. You can also use the boxes too if that's easier, to highlight a specific section you want to talk about. And again, you can even add text as well with the text box and put that on there too. And again, if you didn't want any of it, you just delete it all and it's all gone. Okay, so that is the annotation tool, and that's sharing a file. Let's see, if we get rid of that, stop sharing, we now are back to our main section. That file then is there and stays in the main room, even if you have additional sections. And say you're using that main room, or this is an open-ended meeting, that file will remain in there for you. Okay, you don't have to upload it each time you go in. Back to our section here. There's some other content you can do. Polling features. Polling is kind of nice if you want to ask questions of your students, like, is today hot? You can start, and then you see it on the screen. It kind of shows up. Since I'm the only one in the room, I'm the only one that's answering. When you want to lock the poll, it'll finish, and then it'll highlight which of those answers is the most responsive. And then you can always end the poll, again with the little stop sign, the stop button that's here. You can clear the poll too and start again if you want. The only downside to the polls is that you cannot upload them ahead of time. You do kind of create them on the fly. You can create multiple choice questions, ask your question, write your things, and you can add choices to those as well, which is great. But you can't upload them ahead of time. You kind of have to type it as you're doing it. Okay, so that's polling. And now breakout groups. Breakout groups is a way to send students into small groups, have small group discussions. We can't really see it too much here because I'm the only one in the room. So you can't really see too much here, but if you wanted to, you can see the different groups that are available. If you wanted to delete groups, you can do that. You can allow attendees to switch groups. You can, up here, it'll show you how you want to, if there was more than one person in the room, it would say, custom assignment, or it will say randomly assign folks to groups, that sort of a thing. And we'll go a little bit more detail in the small groups when we get back to the main slides. So that's that presentation. Let's see about small groups. And I think we covered the share content screen, we covered the chat section, we covered the attendee panel. Now the My Settings panel, we did go over it a little bit about the video, right? But here's also where you would set up your camera and microphone. Again, using your phone for audio, you can set up here. There's also notification settings, so if you want to change something that you had set up earlier, you can do that. And notifications would be whether or not you want to hear a pop-up, or whether you want to get a pop-up, hear an audio notification, or see something in the browser as well. Sometimes that can be helpful if you're sharing content. You might want to see that. You can do that if somebody joined or left the session, if somebody posts a chat message, or if there's closed captioning available, or more importantly, probably raising a hand. That's probably an important one to take a look at too. Okay, so now if we are all done, and we did not start a recording, so why don't we do that real quick? Just start the recording. And see, now it'll say the session is being recorded, which is wonderful. And we can say, we're talking with our folks, we're sharing content, we're doing all sorts of things. We see the attendees that are listed here. But in order to leave the session, at the end of the session, make sure then you go through and stop the recording. It'll stop automatically, but not after a while. You can stop the recording, and then you can just go ahead and leave the session. And once you leave the session, you'll get this screen, but you can usually just skip that. And it'll take you back. It'll say you can close this window and go to our sessions room. Okay? And this is our session that's still saying we are in progress, so we can still click into that if we wanted to. You go back to this little hamburger menu at the side. If you click on that, you go to recordings, then you see today's recording appears up at the top. Okay, and from there you can do all kinds of things like watch it, download it, delete it, copy the link if you want to put it somewhere else in your course, or even add captions if you so choose. Now, we talked a little bit about breakout groups in the demo, but you might not have been able to see, and well, since there was only me in the session, this slide might help explain that a little bit better. You can see here the assigned group section. When you have more than one person in the group, you can assign them randomly. You can assign them if you have certain folks that you want to work together, you can do that. You can set up the number of groups. You can allow them to switch if you want. You can allow them to be shuffled around if they want. Once you've selected the number of groups and decided whether or not you want attendees to be able to switch groups or have them shuffled, you can hit that start button that's right down here. Now, one of the things too, as a moderator, you will be left in the main room, and that's fine. You can also visit the breakout groups if you like. We'll show you that's here on this next slide. You can do that by finding the little doorway icon and go into that main room. Now, as you can see, well, actually this is group 2, not the main room. On the main room, you can see it does not have a doorway because, well, you are in the main room as the moderator. You stay there. You can move to the different parts of the groups and visit each group and help, which is great if you want to check in on the groups and see how they're doing. One thing to keep in mind, I think I mentioned it in the demo, but it's also worth mentioning here too, is that if you as the moderator are recording the session and you are the lone moderator in that particular session and you enter into a small group, you are no longer in the main session and that session stops recording. So when you do go back to the main room, when you enter your breakout groups, remember to start that recording again. So for that one session, you might wind up having 2 separate recordings if you're the only moderator If you do have a couple of moderators and one stays in the main room, then the recording just kind of continues. It just records the moderator's activity in the main room. And then to end breakout groups is just like you end anything else. This is just a close-up version of that. You use that little stop icon. Now, some more best practices for breakout groups. Just remember to be specific. Turn on your mic, turn on your video, tell them, your students, exactly what you want them to accomplish when they're in the small group. Be even more specific about time. How long are they going to be in the small groups? When do they need to start wrapping up? When are they going to go back to the main room? You can post a note in the everyone chat, but not everyone will necessarily go look there. The students have to, and folks that are in the small groups will have to go back to find that everyone chat. I believe you can also post individual notes in the individual small group chats, although that could take a little bit of time to do. But if you cut and paste, maybe that might be a better option for you too, to warn folks when they're going to be back so that they can wrap up their session and just join you back in the main room, ready to go. Now that wraps up our presentation on Collaborate Ultra. If you do have any questions on what was presented, please send a note to the support desk at iit.edu so someone from the Center for Learning and Innovation can get back to you. Thanks so much for watching.